Hi, team. Welcome to the Escape Podcast for Star Wars The Old Republic. Coming up, Knights of the Fallen Empire class changes for agents and smugglers. But first, SWTOR news and the fun stuff going on in our guild, Alea Iacta Est. Our astromech today is EPC 108, who's here hiding behind this box. Sorry, buddy. Cover no longer grants immunity to escape pod duty. Sorry. With me, as always, is Seema. Hi, Seema. How's it going?
I think you're wrong, Max. I think that is funny.
Did you hear the Canadian sorry at the end?
Yes, you're Canadian, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm having a good week. This weekend we hosted the Galactic Gamer Coalition podcast. That was a lot of fun. We'll say a little bit more about that in the news. And because of the one particular thing they're adding to the operative scoundrel classes, I'm now thinking about leveling them first, maybe in Knights. We'll see. What about you, Max? What's up?
So I've been doing some continuing prep for Knights of the Fallen Empires. One of the things that I thought I would mention, one of the things I like to do as we come up to the end of a previous expansion or a previous set of content is I like to clean up my inventory. And I've got a bank tab set aside on a couple of my two main characters. I don't like to do it for a lot of characters because it can be a little bit of a pain. But I like to collect where I happen to have, typically I do is just where I happen to have a bunch of set pieces for the current content sets. So in this current content, it would be like the Masasi Warrior set and the Revanite set. What are the two? It's Revanite and it's something.
Resurrectionist or something.
Resurrected something and Revanite. So I've got a bank tab that has a row basically set aside for each of these sets, and I've got like Arcanian. I've got just a bunch of the old sets. So I'd recommend for anyone else that's either trying to find reasons to get rid of comms, or you've got a bunch of those gear pieces. Maybe you pull the mods out. Grab a bank, a row of slots in your bank tab. Keep that gear. You might use it for a costume at some point, and then you've got that gear set still around that you can use in the future.
Sweet.
I also was on the Galactic Gamers podcast, and we will talk about that, and that was certainly fun this week too. But first, let's talk about some news.
Now, an Imperial News Network report.
First up in the news, Max and Seema, we're on the Galactic Gamers Coalition podcast, number 9.
I like how this episode is just flowing.
Yes, we are on the ball tonight, aren't we? So the Galactic Gamers Coalition podcast happens once a month, and what it is a bunch of podcasters get together. One set of podcasts, one of the SWTOR podcasts will host it, and then we'll have a single member of a bunch of other podcasts, and switches up, and it's random, it circulates. Maybe 4 or 5 other podcasts will send a member to be a guest. So this week we had Seema and I hosting, and it was the 9th one of these that's happened, and it's the 9th month that it's gone on. Our guests were Tio of Utinicast, Fred from Beyond the Stars, Brian from Bad Feeling Podcast, and Marshall from The Usual Podcast. I had met most of them before. I had not met Marshall on voice chat virtually yet, but had listened to The Usual Podcast before, so we were really glad that we got a chance to meet him, and that was fun, and great time catching up with Tio and Fred and Brian again. So I had a lot of fun. What about you, Seema?
We got to see Tio's new baby.
We did.
That was awesome.
I don't think that was.
And it was. What's that?
That didn't make it in the actual video, the YouTube video of the podcast. It was beforehand, but if you were in the stream, if you were watching, you got to see.
But it was very cool to see all the guys virtually, and it was my first time actually conversing with Marshall also. So it was really fun to meet a new person, especially one as sterling as he is. And I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yep.
Yeah.
I am in the process of editing up that podcast, so you will hear it this week on the usual feeds where it shows up. on youtube.com/newoverlords. If you want the raw video footage of what we did unedited, that is up there now. What else?
I mean, it's really good. I mean, Brian, aside from all his Brian from the Bad Feeling podcast, aside from all his protestations that they're newbies and all that stuff, he actually knows a lot about the game. And Fred from Beyond the Stars is hilarious. And then Tio is just Tio. He's so knowledgeable and friendly. I mean, it's a great group. I'm really glad that we're a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was really fun. That was a great set of podcasters. I'm glad we got all those guys to have the time to be able to set aside, especially Tio with the new baby. I was afraid that we wouldn't be able to get him on, although Chill would have been great as well. In fact,
That's right.
I had checked in with Chill earlier. I just expected that Chill was going to be on because I didn't want to commit Tio to that. But he had some time, so he wanted to switch it up and get in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think luckily he's still in that period where the baby sleeps a lot, and he's not into the period where the baby never sleeps.
Right.
Still coming up.
What else do we have in news this week, Seema, and SWTOR news?
So, SWTOR did publish a couple of class story blog posts, one for the Imperial Agent and one for the Smuggler. And so you can go there if you need a refresher on your class story, like if you kind of lost track on it, you want a little catch up. If you haven't played through the story, it doesn't take the place of that because the stories are, experiencing them is different from reading these little blog posts. So I wouldn't recommend that, but you know, it's a way to catch up, refresh, whatever.
They are quite abbreviated, so I read through them. I guess they need some way to catch people up if they're going to, especially if they're going to start a new 60, because that will be an option with Knights of the Fallen Empire. You're going to get one brand new 60 character if you so choose.
I don't know if they need that though. I mean,
well, that's the thing.
It's like, yeah, and here's BioWare, who when they give actual information that we want, they distribute it to like in this weird like I'll tell you and then you tell them kind of fashion. And then it comes to this when there's tons of stuff already out there on YouTube and blogs and everything else where people, if they were interested, could go find it.
Right.
So
you can go onto YouTube and find the entire class story cutscenes for each of the classes. Right. I'm pretty sure for all the classes, all laid out. You could watch it basically as a movie. I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why they felt they had to do this.
But I did get to thinking about how the class stories do and don't mesh, and it got me thinking that you know, maybe there's a timeline out there that shows where the class story, where they, you know, this happened and then like the knight does this and you know it's before the counselor because this person was still alive and the person's dead in the counselor story or whatever. And there are timelines like that out there. There's some discussions in the forums. I found this very involved timeline that this guy put together for the entire Star Wars universe, which is like almost 1,000 PDF pages long. Yeah. But he does have a really long section on SWTOR, and he goes through all the class line stories and tries to mesh them together. It's pretty fascinating.
So I'm sure they're going to do that for the rest of the classes as well.
Yeah.
If you need that, I guess it's out there.
It'd be weird. It'd be weird if they didn't.
Well, yeah, it would be. Also announced this week, they're making some changes to Conquest. So what they talked about was when Knights of the Fallen Empire does drop, Conquest will be changed slightly. They wanted to modify it in some way, and this is one of the first steps, at least, that they're taking. They've decided it's difficult for people to meet their weekly objectives, so they're reducing the target for the number of conquest points you need to meet your weekly objective for most of the weeks, everything except Total Galactic War, I believe. The other thing that they're doing is they've determined by looking at the data, and you can pretty much tell the way guilds go at it, craft to win has been a pretty standard way that guilds have been going after conquering planets. And the very large guilds or guilds that feel like they need to or have a bunch of materials to use or money to spend, do the repeatable crafting missions to get conquest points, and that's how they get millions of points, and they get them right away, and it's pretty obvious that has a strong influencing effect on how conquest even runs. And what they said, which I think makes sense, is that they didn't want crafting to win conquest to be the only way that works. So they're going to back off on some of that. They're going to make some of that non-repeatable, just once a week type of conquest point rewards, and make it so that you need to do more of the things in order for your guild to be winning conquest and for you to reach your personal conquest targets as well. What do you think of that change, Seema?
I think that it's fine, but that I don't, even though they said the reason, I don't know why they did this, because they said the reason was that they felt that not as many people were doing conquest as they would have liked at this point, and they decided that was because it was too hard. But I think people don't do it because, well, you can't win. You can't win if one of the large guilds wants to win. You can't win a planet. But also, there's no reasonable reward for doing it. It is a lot of effort. And 25,000 points versus 35,000 points, it's easier, but it doesn't make it any more worthwhile to do as an activity.
Right, so I think there's an opportunity for them to increase the rewards. That would be nice, for one.
That opportunity has existed for a long time.
Right. Well, it's still an opportunity.
I mean, it hasn't been updated really so that it includes the new mats, and then,
yes.
you know.
So there are, I think, I would like to see, I always thought that the conquest system was interesting, and I thought it was a good opportunity to create a system that rewarded people for playing the game. I think they have a need to do some updates, as you're suggesting, update the rewards that you get and the reason that you would go after conquest to make it commensurate with the kinds of things that they're suggesting you go and do. And if they did, I think it would be a good opportunity for them to refresh people's memory that there are a bunch of these parts of the game that maybe you haven't done in a while, and hey, we'll give you some bonus points this week and a good reward if you go off and try some Galactic Starfighter. Remember that? Remember when you had so much fun doing Galactic Starfighter and now you haven't done it in 2 months? Go try it again and remember how fun it is. I think that would be a great opportunity for them to make that system work.
Yeah, I guess I would just feel better about it if they would have just said, you know, we notice that most people are using crafting to get their points, and we don't want that, so we're reducing the effectiveness of crafting, and as a result, we're lowering the number of points that you have to get too. Instead, they said this other thing about how we're changing it for you because you find it too hard and blah 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 blah.
Yeah, I think
whatever.
There probably were two goals that they were going after, and they weren't exactly clear, because changing craft to win, I don't think was done on behalf of the players, and they didn't say that.
And they didn't make it easier. Now for guilds that were using crafting to have a chance of winning won't have a chance.
Right. And people that were using crafting to get their personal targets won't be able to do that either.
Right. And guilds, the big guilds that don't have to do anything to win, just log in and their members do whatever they were going to do, and they can get the more points just because they're big guilds, they're still going to win. So I don't think they've really changed anything with this.
Right.
But yeah, new rewards would be nice, or even like a low chance of something special would pique my interest again in Conquest. Like, you know, a low chance of getting a pet or a mount or,
right,
you know, a speeder or
something interesting,
a toy, something. Yeah.
Fred kept just suggesting in the Galactic Gamers Coalition discussion, make a cartel pack a reward, whatever the current cartel packs are. I did sort of like that idea, because then you've got that chance for the mount or pet, and it's always new. That would be pretty interesting. Low chance, or you know, do the GSF
wouldn't have to
weekly.
Design anything new for Conquest.
Right.
Yeah.
Do the GSF weekly and you get a cartel pack. Hit your personal conquest target and you get a cartel pack. That sounds
Yep.
awesome.
And if you love the cartel pack and you get addicted to that style of gambling, you might buy more cartel packs.
True.
So it's even win-win for BioWare too.
That is totally true. I didn't even think of that angle on it. We heard a little bit more news this week about Eternity Vault and Karaga's Palace. What was that, Seema?
So they are going to be removing the nightmare modes for those because they weren't different enough from hard mode, and there wasn't, I guess, a good / easy effective way to make nightmare modes in the new model. So they're just going to be removing them. So if you're looking for those titles for doing the nightmare modes, this is just for Eevee, Eternity Vault, and Karaga's Palace. You need to do those before the 20th. That includes the timed runs for titles, any, like the non-timed, just killing the boss, those achievements.
Yep.
And they said they're going to move the achievements into an archived section.
And they will also
So
be moving any rewards that you would have got. Anything that was unique to Nightmare, they're going to be moving into the hard modes, so you won't be losing any potential drops.
Well, that's good to know. I had missed that part.
Yeah, that's nice too. We also saw that, and I noticed I keep sort of letting it slip and not remembering because I just figured, I'm always subbed. I don't think about it, but there's another reward for subbing by the end of this month in preparation for Knights of the Fallen Empire, and the reward for this month is Nico Okara's Duster coat as a pre-order, sort of a pre-sub reward. What would have been a pre-order reward in past expansions. So I think it was 2 months ago, it was Nico Okara as a companion. Last month it was his blaster set, and this month it is his Duster coat, which I like. I think the Duster coat isn't all that unique. I think there's similar models in the game, but I like the blaster set. I do want the blaster set for my mercenary.
Yeah, I think they're cool.
They also posted a little clarification, which I don't think is all that clear of a clarification, about Nico Okara as a companion. Someone was asking on the forums, hey, are we going to get him at level 1 or level 10 like you get HK and Treek respectively? And the response was slightly cryptic and saying, no, you're thinking about it slightly wrong. He's not really going to work that way. He's going to become available to you as part of the Knights of the Fallen Empire story. So that's not completely clear to me when you get him on alts, and how that exactly works. So I guess we are going to need to see how that happens, but it sounds like it will not be sort of that level 1, level 10 type of get a token, just go and unlock it for a new alt that you roll up.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that, really.
Right.
I mean, I was already subbed, but if I was a person who subbed in order to get this companion, I might not want to think about every character having to play to level 60 at least to get him.
Right. Right. That's interesting. I hear they have a new Cantina tour coming up.
Yes, yeah, we touched on this last week, but happening on Thursday, October 8th in New York City for New York's Comic-Con, and this is actually the one where they're going to have the cosplay contest.
Oh, right,
so
right. I think we did talk about that last week. That should be interesting.
Yeah, if you're a costumer, this is the one for you.
That should be interesting with some pretty significant prizes, including like a year's subscription and a bunch of cartel packs and cartel coins and things like that. So cool.
Yeah.
And finally, there was a thread on SWTOR.com about streamlined leveling and whether that was going to preclude people from continuing to do their class stories when they roll up alts in the future after 4.0 happens. And they made a couple clarifying points that said you certainly are going to continue to be doing your class stories if you're rolling new alts from level 1. But how it exactly works and how it's different than just saying 12x XP, they have not yet announced, but will be doing that soon in a dev blog. So we can keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, he said hopefully sometime next week, and that was posted, I think, today or yesterday, so
right.
Soon,
trademark TM.
Yeah.
How's our ops teams doing, Seema?
So in guild news, our ops teams, well, let's see, SUP, which is our Imperial Ops team that meets on Wednesday nights, going strong. Check in for sub spots, like if you are available on a Wednesday and would like to sub in. Um, Soldiers of Light, our Republic Ops team on Monday nights, gaining members are close to full. They still might have an opening or two. You can check out our forums or talk to Sten, who's the raid leader. And then LOL, that's the Lords of Light. That's the team that Max and I are on. We hit the story mode Temple of Sacrifice this week to get some set bonuses for people, and we hit an achievement run, and then we also did Colossal Monolith, the lair boss on Zyos, and did it with one tank because we had a question of whether you can do that in story mode, and you can.
Apparently you can.
But yeah, that's pretty much our raid team lineup right now.
Myth confirmed. You can do it with one tank.
Yeah, myth confirmed.
Our mandatory fun night this week is going to be Imperial side 16-person Nightmare Karaga's Palace. So the next couple weeks, and maybe even more before 4.0 drops, we're going to be on our guild taking at least a couple groups through the Nightmare Karaga's Palace, Nightmare Eternity Vault. We do know there's some people that still don't have those achievements. We're trying to get everybody to get those unlocked. Get some titles on a couple of your characters, so that should be fun. I think we're getting...
And I think, if you're on Jedi Covenant and you want this achievement as well, I mean, don't hesitate to send us a tell, and if we have room, we pull you in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And certainly want to give a shout out to the chat room. Thanks to everybody that shows up, joins in, chats it up with us before, during, and after the show. We've got a bunch of people in there tonight. I see a bunch of the usual suspects. That's a great part of us being able to do this, is having you guys to give us tips, talk about what the current events are, to give your ideas. So thank you very much. We'll do a drawing after the show for a cartel pack. And for the people that are waiting for their cartel packs for the earlier giveaway a couple episodes ago, those are still in progress. That will be happening shortly. Took a little bit of extra work to make that happen. But with that, I think we can hear about let's hear from the granddaddy of all smugglers.
Hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
He's the guy. He's the one.
The archetype smuggler of smugglers that brought the idea of smuggler into the Star Wars universe. So we are hearing this week what some of the updates are to agents and smugglers in Knights of the Fallen Empire. This is the second of the 4 base classes that they're talking about what they're adding in terms of new abilities, new passive and active abilities, new talents, new... I guess that's mostly it. What you're getting as you get on your way to level 65. But before we dive into that, because it's relatively concise what they're doing and how they're handling it, I wanted to do a quick refresh on why we care about operatives and scoundrels versus snipers and gunslingers. In particular, operative and scoundrel I think is interesting because, again, it's one of those 3 advanced classes in the game on each side that you can be a healer. And Seema, I know that you have healed quite a bit as an operative and or have you did scoundrel? I mean, it's the same, but
yeah, I've
you have a scoundrel
healing too. Yeah. Well, I mean, the style of healing is a lot of fun because it's a lot of hots, and one of the and that's not changing in this, so it's still pretty based on your hots, and you can really actually put out quite a bit of healing just keeping up your hots, and then you have a few things that you can pull out for emergencies, and then you have 2 different AoE heals, so it's actually a really fun class to play, especially if you like doing something every second. It's kind of different from playing the mercenary trooper, which you have a few more abilities that have a channeling time or a cast time, so that you can start off and you can actually say something in guild chat while it's going off. Not so much with the operative scoundrel. It's because you're always hitting something.
So would you say it's pretty reactive, or is it more rotation based and you just got to keep your hots up?
Um, well, you can play that rotation way, and if you just keep hots rolling on everyone, or as many people as you can, actually, um, that is one way to play the class. But it actually doesn't always help your team out if you play it that way, because sometimes, so you're putting a lot of healing on people that would normally get their health back before they got damage anyway, and you might be ignoring a tank that needed more attention.
Sure.
So you're actually, if you play it just that way, you're putting extra stress on your fellow healer.
Makes sense.
So really, it's like every healing class, you have to make your judgment calls all the time, too.
Now, operatives and scoundrels can also do DPS. There are DPS specs associated with those, and those are pretty stabby, up close and personal
Yes,
types
it's a
of
melee
damage
class
dealing.
for DPS.
Yeah.
I actually should mention, too, since it's a really big deal, is like operative scoundrel is a great healer in PvP.
Right. It certainly is. It's one of the best, especially since it has the opportunity to be stealthed at the start of a 4v4 ranked match. That provides a little bit of a bonus in some ways.
And also, by being stealth, you get, stacks of your stuff that you need when you come out of stealth, which you normally would have to build up another way.
The other advanced class that's associated with agents and smugglers is sniper gunslinger. Snipers and gunslingers are only DPS, and there are relatively high DPS. So there's, as you would expect, there's sort of a dot spec, a direct damage spec, and a little bit of an in-between spec. The dot spec, since 3.0, has put out some of the highest damage of the specs. So that's engineering on the sniper. So my sniper that I've got here has played engineering. I do like the dot spec. I think it is pretty fun and interesting to play. It's also quite a bit more mobile than the other specs. The other mechanic that's iconic to snipers and gunslingers is the idea of getting in cover. And when you get in cover, you have an ability to get in cover. You can either drop in place and get yourself into cover, or you can sort of duck behind a box and roll into cover. That used to be, so when the direct damage specs, like the sniper marksman, I think is the marksman and sharpshooter, that's what I used to play prior to 3.0 on my snipers and gunslingers. That you certainly need to be in cover quite a bit more, even for certain abilities to work. And those abilities won't even work unless you are in cover. There's a lot less of that with engineering, which is making it popular right now with 3.0 because you're a lot more mobile. But especially if marksman becomes strong again, needing to be in cover and needing to stand still in order to do some of your casts for your longer cast abilities is something you need to sort of plan for and deal with and get good at. So it's an interesting gameplay. I was never that fond of the cover mechanic, having to drop myself into cover or worrying about being in cover. So I was pretty happy that engineering was working really well for 3.0. Have you done much?
And that's true of the operative scoundrel DPS options. I think for them too, you don't need to be in cover that much.
No, right. You need to be more stealthy, stab them in the back, kick them in the nads.
Yes.
Type of abilities. So we got the notice on the new abilities. It's laid out quite a bit similar to the way we talked about warriors and knights last week. We got a new utility in each of the tiers that we can talk about, and we got a new major ability for each of the advanced classes, and we got some passive abilities along the way as well. Why don't you run us through the major abilities, because I know you've got a favorite here. Seema. What are they giving operatives and scoundrels in particular? Because I'll talk about the snipers and gunslingers, because boy, that is making me really
for the operative scoundrel, there's a new move and it's called hollow traverse on the agent side, on the operative side, and trick move on the scoundrel side. And basically it's like a force speed that you can use inner or out of stealth. It's not actually force speed because you're not a force user, but I mean it's a fast closer. You move super fast to your target, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. It's similar to an ability that rogues have in other games. So I think that kind of brings them maybe closer up to par in terms of fun gameplay. And this is one reason why I'm thinking about leveling them, because as I go through Knights of the Fallen Empire content for the first time, I like the idea of being able to do it in stealth, because I can stop and look at things and I don't feel like I have to be constantly killing, and yeah, so I might do that. Let's see. So for the medicine sawbones spec, which is a healing spec, there's a new passive skill that increases basically the duration of HOTS, and it makes stim boost and pugnacity grant an instant activation to one of your direct heals. So there are 2 heals that the operative scoundrel have that do have a prep time, and at least with this use now with stim boost and pugnacity, which is a move that you might sometimes use to help regen. Now it adds to that the instant activation of a direct heal, so that's pretty cool. And then they move some stuff around about when the abilities are trained. Then for the DPS versions of Operative and Scoundrel, they also get a new passive skill, the first one being Concealment Scrapper, that adds damage to your target if it has Acid Blade or Flechette round on it. And it also moves several things around to improve the leveling experience. They said they felt that Concealment Scrapper needed some improvement to the leveling experience, so they moved quite a few things around when you train stuff. And then with Lethality Ruffian, the new passive skill adds more explosions and more sort of direct damage. So like Concealment Scrapper, it's like they're kind of adding more to your dot type damage, and Lethality Ruffian adding more to your like explosion and like direct damage. And also with Lethality Ruffian, they move some utilities up in terms of when you get them. Like instead of getting them at the one where you don't get it at 59, you get it at 60, or I forget the numbers, but they're just moved up a few levels to even things out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much it for the melee ones.
I like how, with all of these so far, and I expect the trend to continue on the next 2 sets of advanced classes that they go through, that the additional passives that they're granting and the active talents tend to enhance each of the classes, each of the advanced classes that they're applied to. So they're specializing the advanced class, they're giving it a particular purpose. If you want a dot spec, there's a dot spec, and then the new passives will increase the effectiveness of dots. If you want a direct damage spec, there's a direct damage spec, and the passives increase the the effectiveness of direct damage. So I think it makes sense.
I like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it a lot better than if they took like lethality and said, okay, when you use this bomb, it's gonna add a dot.
Right.
That would start to water things down. I like it that they're trying to work toward keeping the different specs have their own personality.
Yes, I agree. So Sniper Gunslinger gets a new ability as well. I've been making fun
and how
of this
do you
ability.
feel about that new ability there, Max?
It's all right. So I was thinking about it. So I was a little down on it. What the ability is, it's an ability that resets the cooldowns on a bunch of other of your useful abilities. So I thought, great. Operative Scoundrels get this stealthy shadow step, awesome move, and the Sith warriors and knights get this blade blitz where they're flying through and doing damage and sprinting off. They're gonna sprint themselves off of cliffs. Those are really cool. They're gonna be flashy. And what do snipers and gunslingers get? They get to reset some cooldowns. However, one thing that I did think about that is probably going to be a benefit to snipers and gunslingers, and for people that are purists in the class may actually be relatively excited about, this type of ability, when you reset cooldowns like that, can have a noticeable impact on overall DPS.
Oh yeah.
In parses and in boss fights. So out of the abilities that are coming, the new ability, this high level ability that you're getting, this could be, in terms of numbers and math, one of the best abilities of anyone's.
Right.
However,
it has that potential for sure.
I still like the flashy abilities, and it just seemed a little. It's also once every 3 minutes, which seems a little harsh because the Hollow Traverse Trick Move teleport is once every 45 seconds. There's a new passive talent at tier 3, which will drop 30 seconds off of the cooldown. Okay, so that's nice. So if it is useful, then you're going to have to take that talent, because if it is useful at 3 minutes cooldown, well, it's certainly going to be even more useful at 2 minutes and 30 seconds cooldown. But maybe it's going to have some cool animation when you do the reset. That's all
Yeah, it'd have to be really cool animation.
Exactly.
It sounds like.
So we'll see. Otherwise, the passive skills that you get, again, they match up well with Marksman and Sharpshooter. Gets the increased armor penetration by the attacks that match up with what their spec is very good for. You get better AoE with your engineering spec. And that's one of your key abilities. You're throwing out these grenades. Some of them have dots that add damage to what you're doing. Some of them are just straight AoE. This is a crit to AoE, so it's not like it's increasing the damage to your dots, which I probably would have preferred. But still, it fits well with the spec again. And then Dirty Fighting Virulence gets which is sort of in between there. You do get a little bit of a dot boost. We still have the effect that we talked about in the previous set of skills that we got, where you're going to get one of the talent points taken away when you log in at level 60 that we currently have, and you'll get it back when you get to level 64 or level 65.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to keep that in mind. You don't have any more talent points overall to spend by 65 than we have currently. And there are new utilities, one new utility at tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 to spend our currently limited number of points on. What do we have? 7 points currently?
Yeah.
3,
7.
2, and 2?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
So it'll still be 7 points, and now we have an extra ability in each of those tiers to spend it on. You'll have to deal with that. More choices to make, and maybe that's going to continue to push people to be diverse in some of the utilities that they pick and have more differentiation across the utility sets. But I sort of feel like they could have just given us another utility point.
I mean, another thing on that ability that resets the cooldowns is it resets your defensive cooldowns too. So, I mean, that'll give you a second burst of survivability, which might come in handy. And if there's any gunslingers and snipers out there attempting to PvP.
I think for PvP, this will be quite a strong ability. Although, same with Blade Blitz, Blade Blitz has potential for being a good utility talent in PvP because it's giving some additional mobility to those classes. And the same with Hollow Traverse Trick Move.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think all of these, from a PvP perspective, have some impact. When they talked about the design of how they were going to be tweaking classes, they definitely claimed, at least at the time, that changes to the PvP meta and how the balance between classes tends to work is going to be something that results from the way they're changing classes. Whether that is specifically a design goal or just an effect that they maybe a secondary goal that is an effect that they notice or they're calling out. I'm not as clear. So far, though, it does look like these, if you were looking at it through a PvP lens, these are certainly interesting from a PvP perspective. So there's that. I know we're not getting new PvP content in terms of maps right out of the gate when KotFE drops. I think this is one of those ways they were saying, hey, just keep an eye on how the classes are going to be working. The way PvP feels today is going to be changing to some degree, and you're going to need to deal with that from the meta perspective. And when I say meta, I think we've explained this in the past, but that means sort of how classes currently respond to each other and which classes can operate in which ways in relation to each other in a PvP match. As classes become either more powerful or gain more defensive abilities, more escape abilities, the way you might play a class against other classes then needs to respond. And that's sort of the meta PvP behind the scenes things that are impacting how PvP feels. So it's not the core game, but the meta will be changing, which will change how you play even if none of the maps change. So there's that.
So I hope that does give something of a refresh to PvP.
I, it will make it different regardless. Whether that's enough for a bunch of PvPers to want to jump back in the game that have either left or that are currently playing to say, well, yay, everything is new again. I don't know if it goes that far. For the people that are currently still PvPing, though, I think it will be an interesting change and something they're going to have to react to. And it may be in some ways a little bit painful. Change isn't necessarily always fun to have to deal with. If you've got a really good class and rotation, you've got a lot of muscle memory that you currently have with the way you PvP in your rotation. Like my Sork, if my Sork's going to have to that I PvP with, if I'm going to have to be dealing with new moves and dealing with new abilities and figuring that into how I play the game, it's going to take me a little bit of work. But I think I like the idea, and I hope most players that are PvPing will as well.
Cool.
So, Operative Scoundrel, you said, I guess to wrap it up, you said you may switch over to your Operative and level that first. Why don't you talk about that?
I don't mean that I'll switch over to my Operative. I just mean I might take the first view at the new content on my Operative or on my Scoundrel. I don't know which one yet, but I mean, the person in the forums or people on the forums that were asking about how is the XP going to work, one of the things they want to know is whether should they be rushing to finish leveling now, or would it be better leveling after? And both of my my Operative and my Scoundrel are not at 60 yet. I mean, they're close. One's 59 and one's 55, but I kind of would like to. I probably will level them to 60 if I decide to start with them, because I would want to start on day 1, of course. But yeah, that's kind of what's going through my mind right now on that.
Yep, and I think overall, I like that idea of holo-traverse trick move. I never have really played too much of Operative Scoundrel. In fact, that's one of the few advanced classes that I still don't have at level 60. I have my sniper here who's all decked out, and I have done PvE at least with sniper gunslinger. I don't foresee, though, that of making sniper gunslinger or Operative Scoundrel a main character if I have to pick sort of my top couple on each side. At this point, we'll see. I'm still waiting with bated breath to see what happens with mercenaries and troopers. So that'll be over the course of the next 2 weeks. We'll see what abilities are going to get there.
Sort of trying to decide between changing my main from Merc to Sork.
Right.
But, if they give something super fantastic to Merc, maybe not.
Maybe not. Right. Maybe some big flashy, explodey ability. Of course, you need some Healy type of thing to make it interesting.
Flashy, explodey movie type thing, yeah.
Yes, I want that's a good move. I want some sort of, you do some ability and it's a giant explosion, and when you do it, your character turns away from the explosion and slowly walks towards the camera. That's the ability.
Yeah.
That would be perfect. All right. Any other final comments? I think we've just about covered it. So we'll.
Nope. I think that's good. I'm looking forward to the last 2 class notes and that info on how leveling will be next week, and
and our stream for chapter 1. Keep an eye out. We'll see what the devs do around that. But with that, I think our EPC 108 can holo-traverse right into the escape pod and roll out. So thanks to all of you for joining us on newoverlords.com, on iTunes, on subscribing on YouTube, or subscribing on Twitch. We'll stream again next Monday night on twitch.tv/newoverlords around 10:30 p.m. Central. Please follow us on Twitter @MaxTheGray and @AIESEMA, or find us on Jedi Covenant and come join our guild. It's Alea Iacta Est, AIE-guild.org if you want more information, or come find us on in-game and we'll drop you a guild invite. And we will talk to you soon.
Later, everyone.